Another important concern was raised this week in response to last Friday night's campaign kickoff address regarding my criticism of the Republicans' Repeal and Replace plan. The question: isn't the pre-existing conditions mandate necessary to protect us from fraud by the insurance companies? Let's start with some background. 4 months leading up to the House Republicans' landslide victory last November, all they could talk about was ending Obamacare with their Repeal and Replace plan. And for good reason. Ending Obamacare was probably the marquee element of the perfect storm. But since that time, those same Republicans have gone silent on the issue. They said they'd made a pledge to America. They've gone back on that pledge. Some argue that other issues such as the debt limit have come up, relegating socialized health care to the back burner. No doubt the debt limit is extremely important, but one would be hard-pressed to believe that Republicans have spent all their time contemplating these important issues. One only has to flip to C-SPAN for 10 minutes to hear our supposed representatives waste massive amounts of time dedicating post offices and honoring sports teams to realize the truth. The truth is, Republicans campaigned on Repeal and Replace because it was politically expedient for them. Now that they've successfully retaken the majority, all bets are off. And why should they continue to press the issue anyways? Obamacare contains a number of mandates which, should the Republicans attempt to repeal, might lose them favor in the public eye. It just might not be a popular move. And why should Republicans stand on principle and true conservative values when the status quo is so comfortable? Take the pre-existing conditions mandate, for example. This mandate is arguably the most dangerous Obamacare stipulation in the first place and will inevitably lead to a single-payer system. Here's how. Imagine buying a brand new car. For whatever reason, you decide not to insure it. Couldn't afford it, had a bad driving record, or maybe you just thought you could beat the odds. So you drive it around uninsured for a few years. Eventually, you get in an accident and you're stuck with the bill. You could try to get insurance on the car at this point, but the insurance companies would have none of it. Now, imagine if the insurance companies were legally required to accept your wreckage and buy you a new car at this point. People simply would have no incentive to pay for insurance until the benefit is higher than the cost. The amount of money going into the pool would cease. Premiums would necessarily skyrocket, and in no time, the private insurance industry would look just like your car, crashed. Of course, once the private insurance industry was erased, the government would have no choice but to step in and provide a public option. Insurance is a hedge against your odds of eventually needing it. You pay in when things are good, and it pays out when things are bad. But the pre-existing conditions mandate creates an environment where people only purchase insurance once they need it. In a way, this mandate is oddly reminiscent of Social Security. It creates a condition where money is being sucked from the pot at a much faster pace than it's being added. And we all know where Social Security is headed. Now for the stunner, in case you weren't aware. The Republicans' Repeal and Replace plan maintains the pre-existing conditions mandate. How can the Republicans perpetuate the most massive private industry intrusion while touting the free market, you ask? Isn't that anti-conservative? Doesn't it sound oddly progressive? The U.S. people demand a complete repeal of Obamacare, not the Republicans' plan for Repeal and Replace. If America wishes to avert a public ration system the likes of other second-rate countries, it must deregulate and free up the healthcare industry and let the free market drive costs back down. If Republicans truly believe in the free market, then why replace Obamacare with anything? What is the proper role of government? To preempt and intervene in contracts and individual choice, or instead to protect the individual against force or fraud, merely enforcing contracts if broken? It is the constitutional responsibility of the judiciary, not the legislature, to arbitrate and enforce contracts. So what do the contracts say? If the individual signs a contract with the health insurance company, stating that the insurance company cannot terminate the contract as long as the bill is paid, then the judiciary should enforce that contract. If, on the other hand, the contract states that it can be terminated at any time, then the judiciary should enforce that contract. But who would sign that contract? It is not the role of government to assume responsibility for the individual, but instead to enforce contracts. Where has my opponent been in all this? He continues to support the Republican version of government health care. Panhandle conservatives should take Miller to task over this. The first question conservatives must ask is, why didn't you keep your promise to continue fighting Obamacare? The second is, why not repeal Obamacare and replace it with nothing? Lastly, since you support the pre-existing conditions mandate, do you also support socialized healthcare? Libertarians, on the other hand, are consistent on limited government. We want government out of all aspects of our lives, not arbitrarily where the politicians get to pick and choose. The Libertarian Party is the party of true conservatism. Or stick with the Republicans and they'll stick with going back on promises and increasing failed government welfare programs. What's new?